Welcome to the first review that we're doing on a game for the Chaotic Knight Network. We are coming to you kind of re-energizing the network, as it were, maybe doing some changes. We won't have role-playing games like we used to. We do have those up on our content, so you can check those out. They'll remain there until we run out of room, I guess, on YouTube, if that's a thing. But we're going to start our review segment of Chaotic Knight. And we're going to start with a game called Castles of Burgandy. So we'll be coming at you once a week with a new game each week that we will review, kind of give our feedback, give it our scores, and then we'll kind of go from there. Later on, as we go down the road, our plan is to have a segment that is for gameplay, how to play the games, and then a third segment which will be actual games being played. So basically battle reports. We'll do board games, but we are going to kind of expand our genres of games to all games, and we'll be doing that. I am Jared, and I'm joined by
Cole.
And
today we're going to be looking at the Castles of Burgandy, a pretty popular game about being a prince in Burgundy and developing your land and technology. So this is roughly what a two-player version of Burgundy looks like when it's set up. As you can see, there's a lot of numbers on the board, and that's for 3 and 4 players. Your goal in Castles of Burgandy is to get the most victory points, and you're going to do that by developing your land on your player boards. By taking different actions. So you'll have 2 6-sided dice, and at the start of your turn you will roll them, and that will show you what you can do, what actions you can take on your turn. So with 2 5s, blue could come over here and take one of these tiles and put it on their player board, like so. Once a tile's on their player board, they can spend a number matching the area they want to place a tile. So for that in mind, it's gray. You have these gray areas on the board. You'd have to change your dice somehow to be able to place that onto the table. But if this was a 4, then you'd be able to spend that dice to take the tile and put it on this 4 spot, like so. And then you'll score points once you've completed a section. So if you filled up all those gray spots, you would score the points for 3 tiles, which is 6 points. And since this is the first round of the game, you get an additional 10 points to 16. Once you get silver, you can buy stuff from the middle, not as an action, as like a bonus action. And you can get additional workers with dice, which I don't have on the table. Workers let you change your dice up and down by 1 per worker spent. You can discard a dice to get 2 additional workers on your turn. You can also spend your dice to trade in your trade goods here if the number matches the good. That way you can get silver and additional points for turning those in. Once you've taken your 2 actions, then it goes to the next player, so in this case red, and they would take their 2 actions, and it keeps going until everyone's done. Then you go to the next turn. There's 5 turns in a round, Each time a turn happens, you'll take one of these, roll a dice to see where it lands. When you start taking these boats and placing them, that'll let you pick up those goods and put them into your supply. And this keeps track of how many turns you've taken in a round. Once you've taken all of them, and this is empty, you start another round and you reset the board and put out more trade goods. You do that 5 times. Each time the bonus points goes down, so you want to be able to complete areas as fast as you can. But once you're done with that, that's the end of the game, and the person with the most points wins.
So as we looked at the game, again, these are just brief reviews, not to do a how to play, but just to kind of give you our take on the game, and as we look at the games and review them for a variety of things. We have five components that we're going to look at for all of our games, so we have a rating system. I am going to use my sheet. 1 is the game fun? That's number 1. Number 2, how are the components of the game? What are they? Are they quality? Are they? Do they feel good? That kind of thing. It's an important part of the game, and as board games grow and the market grows, it becomes more and more important. 3 is the theme of the game. How is that played out? Is it? Does it make the game intriguing and those kind of things? 4, is it family friendly? We run a game store, so we like to have the ability to say, hey, that game can be played with kids. That game needs teenagers, or that game's more prone to be played by adults, and that's just a better thing to do. But we have that as a 4th component, is it being family friendly. And then 5, what does the game do that others do not? Looking for uniqueness in the games and those kind of things. So it's not just a rehash of some other games that you played. So we'll start with those things. We're each going to do our take on that, and that'll be kind of the theme of each video as we go forward. And as you watch more and subscribe to our channel and look at those things, you'll be able to, you'll already know what the kind of process will be as we go through and do our reviews. So yeah.
Is it fun?
I believe this game is very fun. I have a lot of fun playing it. It's very intriguing. It has the depth I like without being overly complicated, though it is more complicated than, say, like a Catan, for example. But yes, yeah. I believe it's fun. So,
yeah, I agree. The game is a lot of fun. Keeps you engaged the whole time. You constantly have to try and think around what you just rolled, so it brings something else that other games of this type don't do. So it is fun.
Yeah. And you're not sitting. That's another thing that I kind of put into games. Is if it's not your turn, how long is that happening? And on this game, if it's not your turn, you're really engaged because you got to decide what you're going to do for your next turn. So
yeah, and you're watching
engaged. Exactly
what other people do, because it directly impacts you. If someone takes the boat that you wanted to take, then you got to try and figure out what you're going to do
What's my
instead.
second alternative? Yeah. And that has actually screwed me up in a game far more than I want to admit. So.
Yeah.
The components.
Components.
Their quality, their cardboard. So in again, this is my review for me, and I know Cole will have his kind of setting. That way we get 2, and you get a variety of things. The components are solid. These aren't meeples, but the pips are made out of wood, so that's quality. The chits here are cardboard, so that's quality. They're not low quality, but they're not wood or anything like that. So the dice are also solid, colored for each player, and you have plenty of components, so you don't run out or you have to buy more like some of the games out there will make you do. So overall, solid components for the game.
So this is the first time we're going
That's
to disagree. The cardboard components are kind of cheap. They're not great. They're not fun to play with. They look okay. You can tell what they are, but when you look at Castles of Burgandy, it doesn't look exciting.
That is very true.
The art is very bland, and it does get the job done because it's really just about the colors and the numbers, but there's nothing that excites me about the components. The dice are just plain colored dice. There's nothing exciting about them. They're fine. That's not a big deal. But overall, I'd say the components are subpar. And I think I've heard that that's intentional to keep the price low.
Okay.
So that's fair enough. I understand, but yeah, I'm not playing this game because of the components.
What is the price of the game?
I think it's 40.
Okay, yeah, that is pretty cheap for a solid board game.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think maybe we need to maybe take a different view of the components then, because that is a good point. They aren't pretty. They do just get the job done. They aren't as thick cardboard wise as some of the other ones too. So I don't necessarily disagree. But I have played some games where the components basically fall apart, or they're pieces of paper and it just doesn't work. But this gets the job done. Yeah, it isn't. When it was first open and I played it, I agree with that. I was like, maybe this game will not be very fun. But it actually is very fun. But yeah, the components probably have a lacking. I mean, I gave the components a 3, so maybe my review was not so good. Was too high for the 3. Yeah, it was too enthusiastic. I try to keep it upbeat here, but I guess we won't do that. We have Cole to not keep it upbeat. So, what's the theme of the game?
The theme supposedly is that you're a prince and that you're developing your land, and that doesn't really come through. It just kind of feels like any other game where there's animals and buildings, and there's like 1,000 of games of that. So I don't think you're playing this game because you get sucked into the theme. You're playing it because the mechanics are fun and because it's fast-paced and deep, but it's not thematic.
Strategically wise, it is true. It is deep, but do you feel like a baron controlling land and build? And that's the reality. That's the theme. Is that you're a baron controlling land? Does the game push that across? I would have to agree and say no. It doesn't push it across. It is very fun, but you're basically just kind of cycling through the turn motions of the game and those kind of things, which is very pivotal to a lot of games. But as we do more reviews, you'll see maybe how the theme is developed and what we're looking for in a game.
Yeah.
A lot of these components, I look at the like a wingspan, that kind of thing, where is there a theme to that game? Is there not? Yes and no. Are the components good? Yeah, the components are solid in that game. Those kind of things. So maybe we should review that one next. Given those things, is it family friendly?
I would say it is family friendly. You can teach your older kids how to play this game.
Older? What do you mean?
Older, like probably 10, maybe 12.
Okay.
Your 6-year-old's not going to be into this game.
Nope.
I mean, they might roll the dice, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true. There is dice to be rolled. The box does recommend 12 plus, but it can be played by a 10-year-old. I would say if you're a gaming family, maybe even an 8-year-old, but the excitement level isn't really geared to that age level. I would agree with that. So family friendly from the standpoint that it is clean, nothing crazy, no zombies, nothing violent, those kind of things. You're just building an empire. But age-wise, you're probably looking at the 10 plus, I would say. 12 is what the box recommends. I think a 10-year-old can play this game.
But I do think you could teach your non-gamer friends and parents how to play this game.
And that is it. Maybe we should expand that component, because family friendly, gamer friendly. We probably need to look at that going forward, because I think that's a big thing in the market today.
Yeah.
I know my family, for one, I would consider myself a gamer, but I don't have a gamer family in general.
Right.
My son is a gamer, but past that, nobody else really likes games. So there is a component, and we get asked that a lot in the game store when people come in. Hey, is this family friendly is one thing, but is it non-gamer friendly? I think would be maybe the component we want to look at it. And this one is. I think it can be taught. It's not Monopoly. It's a step above that. But it is not so intense like a Twilight Imperium or something like that, where they would be just, I'm not playing that. So from that aspect, I would give this probably 3.5 or 4 for family non-gamer friendliness.
Out of 5 is what you're saying?
Is that what we're doing? It's out of 5, right?
We didn't discuss that, but
Oh, I thought you said it was out of 5. Are we doing it out of 10?
Out of the 5 components is what we were looking at, but
Got it.
that's fine.
We'll come with the ratings.
We'll come with a rating next
games,
time.
Because we gotta put that on the video too.
This is probably not, just wrapping this topic up, probably not the first game I would introduce to your family, but after they've kind of mastered those entry level games, this might be a good medium weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And having that conversation, when I define that anyway, I look at your Monopoly, your Sorry, what is a typical board game, quote unquote, and then you would move to like a Catan, Settlers of Catan, which is what I would consider like a gateway game for a true gamer, board gamer, however you want to look at it. And then you move probably to something like this, and then there, it gets more and more involved as you go through.
Yeah.
So
I would say skip the Monopoly and the Sorry unless you're playing with young kids. Go straight to Catan or Carcassonne.
some people you got to start somewhere though. So
Yeah.
it depends on where the scale you're on.
You've
is, but there
probably
you go.
already played Monopoly though.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you
True.
haven't,
Yeah.
then you're probably not watching this.
But that's a
video.
board game. It's a family-oriented board
Yeah.
game, not for what we would define as the gamer nerd, if you will,
Right.
however you want to define it.
But they'll be happy playing
Yeah.
this too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This is really good.
So lastly, what does this game do that other games don't?
One of the things that I look at is it doesn't have meeples. It kind of replaces that with the dice component, which is fairly unique. I would say there are other games that I think that do this kind of thing, but a lot of the games out there, especially some of the mainstream board games, you have a meeple, and that represents what you're doing for the action. Here it replaces it with dice, giving it a unique component. There's a land building, Catan-ish, if you will, structure to it as you work on your board and you put the pieces together, though I think that's even more developed with the color system and the dice system and all of those things. So I like, for me, the uniqueness in the dice system and how the turns work with the numbers you roll and those kind of things. And I haven't played a ton of games that do that. I know there are some out there, but there is some uniqueness in that. The victory point system is fairly typical, I would say, for these kind of games. If you get in the genre of castle building, turn-based castle building, worker structure, that kind of thing, type of games, which is where I would put this. But this does have a lot of, for me anyway, unique components to those kind of games. When I get into a Feast of Odin or an Architects of the West Kingdom, I'm feeling very meeply a lot, where you're taking a turn, and not that those games are bad by any means, but this gives a unique component away from that into the dice system. So the chits and stuff as you build the boards, again, I wouldn't call that unique myself, because a lot of games use that system, but it is very fun. There is a lot of variety in those that you wouldn't see in some of the games, and so overall I think the game is fairly unique versus other games of its kind with the dice system and the way the chits work and the trading and all of that. It's deeply strategic and deeply unique in those varieties. So
Yeah, I'd agree with what you said, just compounding on that it's a game that is easy enough for people who haven't played a worker placement game before that they can figure it out, but it's complex enough that your worker placement pros will still enjoy it. So that's the unique part, I think, but it's not unique in its setting or its mechanics other than that.
no. The dice does make it. And as I look at it and think about these games, I think the dice actually simplifies that worker placement
It
type
does.
of deal. Gives you 2 actions, keeps it real simple. In like a Feast of Odin, you're looking at between 5 and 12 or 11 or whatever
Yeah.
Vikings, and that's a lot of turns to manage and manipulate, which again is a great game, but this is unique enough and maybe simplistic enough, and maybe that's
Right.
what they're going for, to kind of introduce you to the worker placement type of game. So pretty solid from that component in that way.
Yeah. So overall, or final thoughts?
I like the game. It is a game that I would play on a regular basis. It's not the game I would go to every single week. but I do enjoy playing the game. It is a lot of fun, and the uniqueness of the dice in that system is something that I enjoy and very good for players who are maybe not your gamers, your newbie non-gamers, kind of coming into the genre, so to speak, of a more complicated board game. Great for them to take advantage of this and to have you teach them through a game like this, and it's not overly expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take up a lot of room.
No.
And that's
another thing
too.
Yeah.
So while I've been a little critical on the components and the theme, I do think it is really fun. And what I like is that I can take it out with pretty much anyone I play games with and play it. So it sees the table a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great game for that.
Yep.
So we're not doing a scored rating?
Well, we could do a score rating.
We're doing it out of 5?
Sure.
That's what we're gonna do. We just settled a long-term commitment. So to keep it simple, out of 5, we could go out of 10, but I like the out of 5 better. It gives a less of a window. I gave this game a 4.2, and looking at it from that, mostly the gamer ease of bringing a gamer to the game.
For me, I'm probably thinking 3.5. It's not quite average. It's a little above average. The lack of a theme brings it down, but the fun sets it above like Catan or those entry level games that are hard to stay focused if you've been playing more complex games.
And that's what you'll tend to find. I think I will tend to lean more towards those family. If it's family oriented, it's going to get a higher score for me typically.
Yeah.
And that's a lot because I don't live with a lot of gamers. So you'll get that, and I think Cole will bring more the gamer side to you. So we want to do kind of a range of scores going forward, and just so that you can kind of get if you're a gamer, Cole's probably going to be closer to the mark for you. If you're looking for a game that goes outside of that realm, maybe my score would be closer to the mark. But an average score between the two, I think, is going to give us our best number. So, looking around a 3.7, 3.8, something like that for this kind of game. And we'll get those out and out. This is our first video, so we kind of wanted to get to it and get it done, because we've been putting it off, and then looking at parts and components. We wanted to just make sure that was all done. So overall, Castles of Burgandy, a great game by Ravensburger. Check it out again on the cheap scale. That probably should be part of the rating component, because some of those games out there now are so expensive. But I think that does get back into the conversation of, is it a game for non-gamers or a game for gamers? Because the game for gamers are typically more expensive, because gamers are looking for that higher end components and a more complicated game, which always tends to lead to a more higher cost. So, but great game for that. As I look at the components again, these are pretty flimsy too, so we didn't say that, the boards and stuff. So you gotta take care of them, be careful with that. But a great game, kind of across the board. Gamers will like it because it's deep enough. Non-gamers will like it because it's also simple enough to learn how to get into that genre.
Yeah.
So.
And it is fun to just roll dice and figure out what you're gonna do.
It is, until you get the numbers you don't need, and then it's pretty frustrating. Then you gotta sacrifice your workers. Go to work, man, change my dice.
Yeah. So overall, we both like it. I'd say a lot, and we would both recommend.
Yep. It gets a thumbs up from me. Recommend it for you and your family. It's a great game to go with.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Subscribe if you can't down here at the bottom. If you haven't yet, sorry, not if you can't. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet down here at the bottom. And we'll be coming to you on a weekly basis is the goal, but we'll obviously, as we grow and get better, we'll come to you more often than that. We want to get caught up, I think, in our library of games that we've reviewed, and then also that we've done a how to play for. So we'll get back to you next week. Check us out. Make sure you subscribe, and have a nice day.
Bye.
Good. No?
We'll see.
Well,
It's gonna be raw.
it's gonna be really raw.